it takes a certain type of player to play MMOs, and I think players who shouldn't be playing MMOs are playing MMOs, right? You need to be social. All these people who want to play solo in an MMORPG are ruining the genre. All right, guys, Zepla got a new video. Let's watch it.
Hey, Buns. So a couple days ago, I got a DM from
She called you Buns.
who said that they had heard me talk about bad players. Can you get into more details of that? Because I suck, and playing team games and raids are a pain for me because I don't like talking to people. I just want to play the game solo if possible, but realize I can't. Now, they had heard me.
She just described my community. That's a lot of people in my community are like this. They don't want to make anybody upset with their bad play, so they rather play solo. They're very self-conscious.
We talk about bad players in the context of a conversation about boosting. Someone else had brought up the argument that if you pay real money to level your character, it's more likely you'll be bad because you'll end up with a ton of high-level skills that you have no idea how to use. Now that's...
I did a video about that topic. Click that link up there that I'm going to put up there, hopefully.
Of course, assuming you don't take the time to read the tooltips and figure it out.
That's exactly what I said. These people that boost, they don't have the patience. They're impatient. They just want to figure it out, but they won't read, they won't research, and they end up being frustrated and they leave. That was the sum. And now you don't have to watch the video.
But I had countered that by saying that you can absolutely be bad without boosting. Like, as far as I know, there's no alternate ending to Heaven's Word where Harshaphant teaches you how to slide cast. But I thought this was a really good question that a lot of new players might want some more clarification on. Like, what actually makes you a bad player? What qualifies as good or at least decent? To me, being bad means that you're not only performing like shit, but you also won't listen to anyone. You won't look up God.
I would even take out the first part. Performing bad. Just take that out. You're bad if you don't listen. You could be performing well. You could be performing great, but if you don't listen, to me, you're a bad player.
Guides, you won't read your tooltips, you are willfully ignorant, or worse, you've even got such a big ego about how you know everything that you think that there's nothing that any other person could say that could possibly be helpful to you.
Thankfully, we don't have that many people like that in our community, right, chat? Right? We don't have anybody like that in our community. Nah, we don't have anybody like that. Don't look at me like that. It's not me.
The one who the universe revolves around. Like, you think the sun comes up just to hear you crow. I think there's a really big and important difference to be made here between being bad and learning. Because, as I'm fond of quoting Jake the dog, sucking at something is the first step to being sort of good at it. I remember being new and...
Jake the dog. Yep, my age is showing. I don't know who that is.
I just didn't even know what to focus on or what was important. And my attention, I'm a little bit scatterbrained anyway, naturally. And so my attention was all over the place. And I didn't know, like, where to focus it. I was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants through the story, having fun wherever I could find it, and not stressing too much about anything in particular. But however, whenever I did join a static and there was a helpful person in my group who let me know, hey, do you know your DPS could be a little better? Or, hey, do you know that materia is really important? Or, hey, did you notice that your dots keep falling off?
That's a very touchy thing, too. She's right, by the way. I'm agreeing with her. But if you tell somebody, especially in this day and age, that your DPS could be better, they take it personal. They immediately think you're being toxic. They think that you're being elitist. They jump to all these conclusions. But when the truth of the matter is that when they're saying that, they're trying to make you a better player, and it'll make the fight go smoother if you just don't hit 1, 2, 3 the entire fight, or just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. It's part of the game. It makes you a better player. It makes the game more fun, especially when you get better at it. So I think a lot of people need to be more open to that kind of feedback, because they hear you need more DPS and they immediately, I guess they have WoW flashbacks or other game flashbacks or something, and they get performance anxiety and they immediately want to go to solo. They don't want to play with other people because they can't handle taking criticism and their own self, insecurities start showing, and it's just like, oh, you're toxic. I hate you. You know, you could have said that different. What do you mean I could have said that different? You need to do more DPS. English can only say that so many ways. You know, it's just, it takes a certain type of player to play MMOs. And I think players who shouldn't be playing MMOs are playing MMOs, right? You need to be social. All these people who want to play solo in an MMORPG are ruining the genre. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I didn't know any of that, but once that was brought to my attention and this very helpful person showed me how to use an abacus to check my damage and stuff like that. Anyway, they were very helpful. They showed me, like once I got that information, I was very, very receptive to it. And I listened and it helped me become.
Chad, did she just refer to some outside calculator to calculate DPS? Surely it must have been a slide rule or some sort of a sundial. Some sort of an outside calculator?
A much better player. Maybe some people would have said I was bad, but I think that I showed a willingness to learn, and I was very interested in all the advice I could get my hands on, and I started like watching guides about how to play my job. And so I personally, looking back at myself, I wouldn't necessarily say that I was a bad player, even if I was playing kind of bad at the time. I think that might be another important distinction to make. I mean, I feel like it's a little bit too final to call somebody, oh, you're a bad player, because it sounds like there's nowhere to go from here. Like this is just a label that you have on yourself and you can't grow out of it. Instead.
Okay. This is another thing. This is something I developed a thick skin because I play a lot of sports, right? It's okay to be called bad at something, right? Because in actuality, it is an absolute truth. You're either good at the game or you're bad at the game, right? Or you're mediocre at the game. You know, there's levels in between. But to me, I took that kind of criticism, especially playing a lot of competitive sports and stuff, as a means of motivation. And, you know, my next reaction or my next question would be, well, what can I improve? Whereas if you call people bad, and you know, I guess the language matters too. If you just, you know, if you're barking that they're bad, but you're not giving constructive criticism, it can be taken the wrong way too. But just coming from a sports background and just competitive background, I've developed this thick skin. When somebody calls me bad at something, you know, I go, okay. And I'll even call myself bad because I know there's areas that I can improve. In video games though, man, people, like I said, these are people that are, there's a lot of introverted, I don't know. Just I don't want to say antisocial because I recently learned that that's the bad word to use. Just they don't want to play with people, but they want to play in a game full of people. And when those people talk to them, they get mad. Something to think about.
I prefer to say, you know, maybe I'm playing bad. I am playing bad on Samurai right now. It's kind of like how my dad used to say, you're being an idiot, instead of saying you're an idiot.
Wow. I thought I was the only one who did that. Remember, I have a cardinal rule in my chat that I've had for years, since like day 2. Don't be an idiot. And people just come in like, Bwana, why are you calling me an idiot? I'm like, I'm not calling you an idiot. I'm not saying you're an idiot. I said, don't be an idiot. And I used to put at the end of that caption, you know when you're being an idiot. Stop it. You know it. It's like these days they call it trolling. It's just like, oh, I'm just trolling. You know, they call it trolling. I'm being, you know, don't, and that was a rule in my chat. Don't be an idiot instead of you are an idiot. You know, there's an action, there's an act of being an idiot, and then there's just, well, I'm just an idiot. You know, so I thought I was the only one who said that. It's good to know that other fathers out there, I'm not a father, but that fathers out there are saying the same thing. Then again, I'm probably the same age as her father. Oh no.
He would never do that, and he would say, look, I'm not calling you an idiot, but you're being an idiot. You're acting like an idiot right now. You're acting like one. And I feel like that might be the same kind of logic I'm applying here in a lot of cases to players who are not doing the best on a job, but it's like only right now. And it's natural. It is a natural step in the progression towards becoming a little better. You can't skip over that step of sucking. Well, maybe some extremely, extremely good players can, but most of us can't. We got to wade through it and not be too hard on yourself or shame yourself too much.
And I think one of the things that she's right, I agree. One of the things that separates a lot of the personalities is that there's people who go through that process of sucking and they're really hard on themselves. And then there's the people who have the really massive egos that goes through that process of sucking and they project. They blame other people. They blame the game for not telling them that. They blame the engagement for saying, you didn't make that obvious. You know? And then there's like that person in the middle that does a little bit of both. I think I'm falling kind of in the middle of both. I'm like, all right, you could have explained that better. Like, oh crap, I didn't see that. Maybe I should get back. You know, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Chat, how was I supposed to know that? You know, it's a little bit of both. But your personality and I guess you could say the way you take criticism plays a lot into doing difficult content in MMORPGs. If you can't handle correction, if you can't handle chastisement, if you can't handle the occasional stop sucking, then that's probably why you don't enjoy raiding. That's probably why you can't do Savage. That's probably why you can't do Ultimates. It's a self thing. You got to check yourself, and you can't be blaming others for you.
While you're moving through that, and you know, it might even be helpful for you to be able to identify when you are performing poorly on a job, or if there's some jobs that you are doing a little better on than other jobs, so that way you can improve. Because like I said before, the players who are straight up bad are the ones who don't want to improve. They are.
And the word of the day here is accountability. When you mess up, you need to fess up. For real. A lot of the bad players, these are people I call bad. They won't take responsibility for their mistake. They'll either be quiet, they won't say anything about it, they'll blame somebody else, they'll blame the engagement, they'll blame the fight, they'll blame the game, they'll blame lag. Oh, that was lag. I'm lagging. Oh, my internet. Lag. Accountability, man. You got to take responsibility for your suckiness in order to get better. If you don't acknowledge it, it's going to hold you back in so many ways in life. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Are willingly refusing help. They are not listening, and they're just stuck. They are really stuck in that rut, and that's why I would label them as bad, because I mean, where can they go if they don't want to help themselves? Being able to tell which jobs you are doing good at, which jobs that you could use a little help on, that is going to be that's good. That's something that would separate you from someone who is straight up bad. And remember, too, that being bad or playing badly now on a certain job doesn't mean you're going to be bad on that job forever. And it doesn't mean that you're bad at every job in the game or the game.
Well,
as a whole, you know, I mean, I think I'm pretty decent on Dancer, but you put me on Samurai, you put me on Ninja, I would play like crap. And that's okay. I don't feel bad about that. I feel like it would kind of be boring if I just woke up and it was immediately amazing at every job. I mean, that's not very fun. Part of the fun for me is the process of learning all there is to know about a job and practicing it and like watching how you're getting better and better. Like, that's exciting. That should be part of the enjoyment of play. At least it is for me. Some of the ways that you can gauge how you're doing overall is ask yourself, have I been able to clear quest battles, like solo instances, on their intended difficulty? Okay, like if you can only clear these solo duties on easy mode or very easy mode, I hate to say it, but you are not doing well on the job that you're playing. That's true.
That's true. I consider it a failure. Whenever I go through a solo instance and I die, I feel like I failed. I really do. I'm like, all right, that's pretty messed up. That's pretty bad. And you know what else I do? I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I kick it down to very easy and I just go through it. And I'm like, all right, let's move on. But just like I did with Dark Knight this past week, I go to the Balance Discord. I look up a rotation. Like, this is something I do when I hit 80. I don't do this like pre-80. I go to balance Discord, I look up some rotations, different scenarios, and I rearrange my hotkeys, and then I go to a target dummy and I start practicing a little bit. I run some dungeons, I practice a little bit, and so as a result, my Dark Knight is infinitely better than it was before. It's a lot better than it was before. It's up there with my Warrior. Well, Warrior rotation is brain dead, but it's one of my favorite classes. But I took the initiative to actually get better. I haven't done that with Paladin yet. I got Paladin to 80 recently because I'm working on getting all the jobs to 80. I got Paladin to 80 recently, and I haven't gotten to that weird combo, that weird rotation yet. But it's going to be a little bit different from what I'm used to, but it's fine. But just taking that accountability, taking that step of getting better, knowing that you're bad. Like I figure I already know I'm bad at Monk. I got Monk to 80. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm really bad at Monk. And same is true for Dragoon. I played Dragoon, got Dragoon to 80. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just hitting the shiny buttons. And I haven't taken the time to actually learn it. But if someone would ask me, Bwana, can you play Dragoon in this Savage raid? I'm like, dude, I'm not good at Dragoon. Or dude, I'm not good at Paladin. Dude, I'm not good at Monk. You know, I can acknowledge that I'm not good at those classes because I realize my shortcomings. That's a trait that you need to have if you're going to play these games and have a good time.
Assuming that your gear is decent. Like if your gear is around the right item level that you would need for that solo duty, and you're failing it on, unless you put it on easy or very easy, it's clear that either you need to work on your rotation because you're not able to meet even the most basic DPS checks in there. You're not listening to what the NPCs are telling you to do, or you.
That's my problem. They were like, go protect this object, click on this and do this. And I'm just like, what's the next quest going to be? And then all of a sudden I'm dead. And I'm like, oh, shocker, I died. You know, and the NPC is telling you, go over here, do this, keep this person alive. And I don't pay attention. I do that a lot.
Don't know how certain mechanics work. Like you've got to be able to make it through these quest battles on the normal difficulty. Also, check how you're doing on Stone Sky Sea. I know it's not perfect. I complain about it all the time, but especially if you're a healer, like it's not super good at all if you're a healer. But it is a solid tool just to check how your rotation is. I mean, if you can get the duty to under 10% on minimum item level, you can rest assured that you're performing quite well, and you're doing more than enough for the normal. Or
I haven't done those dummy, the Storm Heist or whatever they're called. I haven't done those in a long time, since like Stormblood, I think. It's been a very long time. I might try to do those one day.
Hard mode content, at least. One sign of a good player, and this is especially true of Sprouts, is, you know, being able to take note of mechanics, what they look like, and remember that, and respond accordingly in the future. That's one of the things that I think leveling normally and not boosting will help you a lot with, because you will have to go through a bunch of different dungeons, and as you go through them, you'll start to recognize the patterns of the different mechanics. And it's okay if you mess it up the first few times, you know, the first 2 or 3 or 4 even times. But if you see these same mechanics over and over and over and over, and you keep dying every single time, that's not good. You need to.
Those are the people that annoy me. Like, I know for a fact, unless they got some kind of learning disability or something, I know for a fact that they have seen that mechanic many, many times. They know they're supposed to dodge. I'm looking at you, black mages. They know they're supposed to dodge and get out of the way, but they just stand in it. And when I'm healing, I'm just like, there's a part of me that just says, I'm just not going to heal you. I'm going to let you die. We'll just take this fight. Will take longer. Because you know you're supposed to move. You're going to get hurt really bad, and you just stand there. And you go, whoops, healers are just. I say that in jest sometimes. I just make fun of myself when I make a mistake. I go, whoops, I'm sorry, healers are just. I didn't mean to do it, but there's some mechanics that you know you're supposed to just do stuff, like stack mechanics. And you see the giant stack indicator, and you just stand there and won't move. To me, man, that's lazy. And it does annoy me. It does. If you're just not going to try, don't bother playing, man. And then when somebody says something, you're like, I'm going to go play solo. Well, I don't deal with people, blah, blah, blah. You guys suck. No, because you're not trying. If you're not trying, you're ruining the fun of others. That is the key here, man. If you're not trying, if you're putting in minimal effort and you're just like lollygagging, this is a multiplayer game, man. You're ruining everybody else's time. And that is a problem.
Check and see, like, what's going on. Am I not noticing the mechanic going off? Am I, like, tunneling? There's no shame, though, I think, in dying to mechanics that you've never seen before. And look, we all make mistakes. We all derp from time to time. There are definitely been times when I have failed to a mechanic that I had seen. And that's a point when I usually ask myself, hey, am I really tired right now? Do I need a...
Ooh, I say the same thing. I'm like, I must be tired. Because when I did the Lubrum for like the 4,000th time. And I got to the one where you get the heat, the hot, cold. And you know the one where she does the left-right thing? And I was just like, I just zoned out. I was just like, duh. I was just sitting there doing my rotation and I didn't bother to move. And I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to go over there. Oh, no. And then I died. I'm just like, oh, gosh, I must be tired. I don't know what's going on. And I feel bad. You know, I genuinely feel bad when I do that because I'm like, I should have known to move. And I didn't. You know, but if you just sit there and just like don't care and be like, oh, whatever. I'll just let them carry me through it. I don't care. I just let them carry me. You know, that's,
break right now. Why did that happen? Do I need to focus a little harder? You know, you need to be able to self-reflect on that and not immediately point the finger at somebody else like, oh, it was actually their fault. Like usually when something goes wrong, the first question I ask is, what could I have done better? Was it me? Was it my fault? Or did I ever...
Boy, there's a lot of that going on in MMORPG. They blame healer. Why did you keep me alive? And I'm like, Mr. Tank with 12 stacks. What are you doing? Eat the fruit. Y'all Arm Veil players know what I'm talking about. Why did you let me die? Because you got 12 stacks and you won't eat the fruit. I'm trying to give you some of you new players some examples that you can probably relate to.
Do everything all right. But there are some people who, and I would call these people...
Where are the eels? Where the eels at?
Bad players, people who the last person that they would point at is themselves when they got it backwards. You're the first person you need to check. Because you're the only person you actually really have any control over. So it's a little crazy for me when people don't check themselves at all, are not interested at all in how they're doing, are quite lazy with their approach and their attitude to the game, and yet they go into a group content and they expect everything to go smoothly because they expect everybody else to have done their research and to know what's going on, you know? Mm-hmm. And by the way,
lazy.
You know, you don't have to min-max to be good. You don't have to be like...
I don't min-max at all. Like for real, I go for I'm not gonna say the bare minimum, but I go for what's acceptable. Like when I got my relic weapons and I was putting in stats, I went to the balance and I just saw what was the hierarchy of what you should have, whether it be crit, whether it be determination, whatever. And I just pick random numbers. Like I'll go full this, full that. And if I need to change it later, I'll change it. I don't really min-max in this game at all. I barely, you know, there's a lot of my classes that I play a lot that I don't have any materia on. There's no materia at all on them. And I do fine. I mean, using my abacus and my sundial, I can tell that I'm like where I'm like in the mid tier, not at the top of DPS, but I'm like second or third. I'm like, all right, I'm doing okay.
A super pro at your job or anything to do most of the content that is in the game. Having a general idea of how your job works, how your spells work together is not rocket science. It's not something that's going to take you 5 hours of YouTube tutorials to figure out. Like literally just spend a little time. If you got some questions and ask some people in your FC or hell, even in my Discord server. And there's many people that will help you figure it out. It's not going to be... I think some people just build it up so much in their mind that they think, oh my God, this game is so complicated and there's so much to learn and it's all so complex and it's so in-depth, I'm never going to be able to figure it out. So I think some people get intimidated and they push away from even learning the most basic things about their...
Analysis paralysis, chat. I'm telling you, we got so many people in my community that do that. They just overthink it to death. It's like, all you got to do is do the basic rotation in most of these dungeons and build from that. But what if I don't do the proper amount of DPS and we failed this raid in 30 levels? I'm just like, oh my, come on, man. Relax. It's just a video game. Just have fun with it. Learn from it. You're gonna suck. We all sucked.
Job, but they're really not hard to get down. you know, people kind of get into this mode of it's one or the other. It's either I'm going to chill and be like more or less lazy and not pay attention to what's happening on my screen, or I have to be like super, super, super high end and I need to like be the best and I've got to.
And both are very unhealthy. You really shouldn't be either of these. You should be way in the middle of this.
Min-max and like, oh, I've got to be super into it. It really isn't one or the other. It's more or less like a spectrum between one side and the other side. It's really better if some people would make more of an effort to, you know, put in a little effort instead of getting super intimidated by their perception of how difficult or complex things will be to learn. It can take weeks or months to become incredibly good at the job you are playing, but in the meantime, you can be quite good. I mean, you can be all right. You can be decent. You can be an asset to your team. You can be someone that people want to have around, that people want to invite to their groups. It doesn't take a whole lot of work to get to that point. This is a fairly simple video. I just wanted to get my thoughts out to reply to this person who asked me what is my definition of a bad player. Because as I said, I think there's a difference between someone who was a bad player because they just don't care about getting better, and there's someone who might just be bad at the job they're playing right now. And that is okay. It's okay to be temporarily bad so long as you are actively working towards becoming a little bit less bad.
And I think that's, just to sum it up, my thoughts is just, I think a lot of people who are bad, and you're bad, they're being told that they're bad and they stop putting forth effort because why bother, because I'm bad. And like she's been saying, and like I've been saying, that should be an incentive for you to get better, because we've all been there. We've all been in a state where we didn't know what we were doing. And if someone calls you bad, you shouldn't think that you should quit. Even if there's some toxic people out there to tell you to quit. And that's a whole nother video in itself. But you really should just use that and you say, okay, I'll get better then. I'll get my abacus, I'll get my calculator, my slide rule, and figure out my DPS, and we're gonna get this rotation down to where I'll have the muscle memory for it. I'll look at my hotkeys and put a little effort there and say, hey, maybe I shouldn't have, maybe I shouldn't have a very useful ability on Shift Control Y keybind. How about you put that on 2 or 3, huh? Yeah, you're gonna be using that a lot. Just give your setup some thought, and it's something that's tailored to you. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We got people in my community that just won't ask questions. They won't ask for help. They like I said, analysis paralysis. They're thinking ahead, like, oh, they're gonna think I'm stupid. They're gonna think I'm lame. They're gonna think all this self-confidence stuff starts to creep up. All this anxiety and people just need to open up and just get better,
because it's natural to have that bad step in the learning process, as we've been over. The learning process is good. It's something to be embraced. It's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to get super defensive about either, or to shame yourself about, because it shouldn't take too long for you to go from bad to half bad. Maybe go from half bad to like decent.
And Final Fantasy is a game that you don't have to be that good at it. Let's be real. It's not a super challenging game compared to a lot of other games out there. Now, if you're talking about Savage and up, then yeah, you got to put some effort in. But for most of the normal content and the stuff she was talking about, like the solo mode stuff, it's like basic video game difficulty. It's not difficult at all. And the point she made earlier about if you can't do the most basic stuff, then you really need to look at, where you are in the game.
Good. Okay. All right. But I really think that every single player has the capability to improve to the point that they can do all of the high-end content in the game. I really do think that. And I think that I have probably...
I disagree.
Even a more charitable opinion on this than a lot of other players might. But I have a background as a teacher, and I think that certain people just give up on themselves way too soon, and they don't see the potential within themselves. And so a lot of times through this YouTube channel, I try to encourage people to jump out of their comfort zone a little bit, challenge themselves a little more, and they would be surprised by how much improvement that they will see. But I want them to enjoy the process of improvement as well. I think the only thing that will keep you playing bad and that will prevent your progress, that will hurt you more than anything else, is you.
Truth.
Is you either not.
And that's partly why I disagree with her previous statement. She said that she thinks everybody, I don't know how she worded it, but everybody can do the high end content in this game. Nah. There's a combination of you, like she said. There's finding the right static, finding the right group of people. That's a really hard thing to do. And patience, time, and skill improvement. These are all things that you got to have some self-confidence to do. And some people ain't got it. They just ain't got it. They're not going to do it. And that's why I think this genre isn't cut out for everybody, even though there's a lot of people playing MMORPGs that shouldn't be. They should be playing a single player game. They really should. And there's nothing inherently bad about that. It's just the way people are. It's their personalities. You can't play a social game if you're not social.
Believing that you can do better, or you refusing to look critically at what went wrong and asking yourself if you had any part in what went wrong, if there's anything you could have done better, if there's anything you could change or adjust to do a little better. Are there any aspects of the game that you would consider yourself to be quite bad at? Do you remember, like, are you good at a job? Are you good at something in the game, but you remember a time when you were not so good at it? And
Healing. Let me tell you a story. Gather around, kids. I was really terrified of healing in Final Fantasy XI. Because so much onus was put on you to keep the party alive. And even to this day, there's a lot of pressure on healing. Because if you mess up, everything messes up, right? Everything is done. And it's something that I personally was frightened of. I couldn't stand it. I was like, oh man, but I made myself do it in Final Fantasy XI. I made myself do it. I made myself go through it, and it turned out great. It turned out awesome. I ended up loving healing. It was my main thing. And now I go into Final Fantasy XIV, still have those, sometimes those challenges, but at the same time, I still love it. And, that was the thing. Great video by Zepla. What makes a bad player? I agree with her in a lot of points. It comes down to you. Ultimately, it comes down to you. You gotta accept that failure is a necessary. This is like life advice too, man. It's like you can't succeed without failing. Success comes over many, many iterations of failure. So many people have these cliches and sayings that say that in so many different ways, but you have to fail to succeed. You have to be able to accept that you are bad at something. You have to be able to accept that this isn't going to work, but I'm going to try it anyway. Because how can you succeed if you never have ever failed? Every person who has succeeded in anything has experienced failure. And if they tell you they haven't, they are lying to you. Great video by Zepla. Go check out the video I'll put in the description. And great topic for discussion all around. If you guys agree with me, disagree with me, let me know in the comments. See you next time.